Hello and welcome to my oil refining tutorial for Satisfactory. In this video, I'm going to give you everything you need to set up a oil refinery setup. We're going to build one together. I'm going to explain all the different paths that you can take, their ratios, and how to deal with the byproducts. There's a couple of methods that you can apply, so I'm going to cover the most important ones, and by the end of this video I hope you have everything you need to go big into oil. So first up, you set up an oil extractor, obviously on one of those puddles. Each basic crude oil deposit yields 120 cubical meters of oil per minute. That stuff is enough to power up a couple of refineries. Crude oil is processed by refineries, and you should be already aware of one thing. This is a pretty power-intense industry. A refinery, 30 megawatt, oil extractor, 40 megawatt. So you better bring a healthy backbone of power production. The good part of it is also the entry point of power production via fuel. More about that in a hot minute. So once you have this stuff extracted, you set up a refinery. Refineries are relatively simple. They have a fluid intake and a solid intake, but we are mostly interested in the fluid intake, and we're setting up 4 of them now because 4 is a ratio that you can use for plastic production. So the main paths of production in oil refining are plastic and rubber, because they share a byproduct, heavy oil residue, and fuel that has its own byproduct, polymer resin. The thing here is quite simple. If you produce plastic or rubber, you have a waste product that can be reprocessed into fuel. If you produce fuel in the first place, you have a byproduct that allows you to produce plastic or rubber while recycling it. There is also an interesting caveat about the plastic and rubber production. The heavy oil residue can be transformed not only into residual fuel, but also into petroleum coke. You can either transform it into another liquid, which you can use for power generation. You can also package it to use it for your jetpack or your trucks or whatnot, or you can process it into a solid, which is also a very interesting way of disposal. More about that once we get there. I want to go over a typical plastic production path, and after that I'm going to explain the other ones without building them, because honestly the oil processing setups don't require too much finesse. If you've seen one, you understand the rest of them. So let's go into plastic. Plastic gets 30 oil per minute on one refiner. That's why I built 4 of them, and it cranks out 80 plastic per minute. So on the back end, we'll already have to use a Mark II build to get that out. We also will have a byproduct of 40 heavy oil residue after that. This is something that we need to manage right after this. So we're going to set up another refinery. I'm going to align it like that probably. And if you go for residual fuel, you can process 60 units of heavy oil residue. As you see, this refiner is able to tackle even more than just the plastic production of these. You will get out 40 units of fuel per minute, which you can then either package or put into fuel generators or whatever you want to do with it. The other method that you can go for is transforming it into petroleum coke, which transforms exactly the 40 per minute that the plastic setup brings and cranks out 120 petroleum coke. I will use this for the sake of demonstration here. So connecting the oil intake is thinkably easy. All you need are junctions that you then put in front of the oil setup here, holding control. Usually gets them to snap like that, and then you just give every single one of them a good old connector, and that's just what it is. Don't need to do more. I'll leave up the 4th because it goes faster this way, and it really doesn't add anything to the explanation except for making the tutorial longer. So you will then connect them like that. Go. And as you see here, after placing down the junctions first, this is really as easy as it can get. So what's left to do is powering them up. And just like that, we have plastic coming out and residual fuel or heavy oil residue as well. So when it comes down to the output, it's really up to you how orderly or not orderly you want to do it. If you want to have an orderly setup, you can either set a pipeline support upstairs like that, plant a pipeline junction on top of it. Goes easier if you put the supports not right in front of the entries, but like this. Between them is much better. Roll like that. And we can connect them. And then you can set a... we need a third one for it to work. To show you what I mean. As you see here, building beautiful is always way more work. You could also create a flippy mesh, which wouldn't bother anybody. Then you use a junction, flip it this way, hold down control until you see the blinky arrows, and then you have it. This way you can get yourself a nice and tidy setup, which allows you also to get the conveyor mergers, which you should always use for the exit, in line with that. It is purely cosmetic here. I really don't want to say anything further. Just want to show you how it's done if you want to take care of things looking good. I personally am not that player. My own factories often look, depending on my stress, more or less tidy. So either way, this is how you can then get the plastic out. Tidy or not tidy is up to you. And the last part that we ought to do now is to connect the pipeline here now into the fuel processor. So this setup now takes the heavy oil residue and transforms it into a solid. This is pretty nifty, as we will simply leash a awesome sink on the end of it, and then you can just simply sink the petroleum coke into nothingness. This is one way how you can get yourself an endless processing of these byproducts, and that's relatively easy. You can also wire this up to fuel generators. Mind you though, if you do so, there is one big caveat behind that. It's all nice and dandy, especially as you can easily produce all the power that the entire refinery needs just by choosing this recipe and letting it all run into fuel-powered generators. The downside of this method, though, is the moment your plastic and rubber production is backing up and is not producing anymore, you'll be not producing fuel anymore, and all of a sudden you'll feel a slump of probably 500 megawatt, which are not producing anymore. You can go for whatever method you personally prefer. I'm a big fan of syncing that stuff, because this is a wonderful way of just creating yourself a permanent supply of fixed coupon points while producing plastic. And the nice advantage of this method is there is no downside if you stop producing plastic. The only thing that will happen is that your fixed coupon machine will stop printing coupons. End of the story. So that is how plastic is made, and the fun part is rubber is basically the same. I'm going to go for the fourth machine here because it ain't connected. Wrong recipe, sorry. Rubber has the only downside that it does produce more residue. As you see here, you can run 4 refineries as well as with the plastic. You get 80 rubber out as well like the plastic, but you will produce 80 heavy oil residue. So you either have to hook up 2 of these bad boys here to process the heavy oil residue, or you take advantage of the fact that 80 heavy oil residue are exactly enough to let 2 and something fuel generators run. It's up to you how you want to distribute it. I'm personally a bigger fan of the coupon printing machine, but it's up to you. So this is rubber and plastic production. If you want to go for the fuel production, things are a little bit different. Fuel processes way more crude oil per minute than the other recipes. You can only run 2 refineries if you process fuel. The other part is 1 refinery is enough for 2 generators. So out of 1 deposit, you can run 4 generators. That's 2 gigawatt. It's a lot of power, and it's very, very easy to set up. The polymer resin that you get as a side product here could be processed into residual plastic. The thing here is, I just want to point out, you need 60 polymer resin for 20 plastic. When we go back to the distributions here, we will get only 20 plastic per minute out of an entire oil deposit. That's all. And you will also need to get water into this thing. You can also make rubber, where you process 40 polymer resin into rubber. But either way, this is only to be understood as an extra side production. You can always go the easy way and just pipe that polymer resin just into a fix-it sink, and that's that. The clear advantage if you process the stuff into plastic and rubber is A, you can use it for yourself, and B, you can just wire it into a sink afterwards. Rubber and plastic are, after all, worth more coupons, as far as I know. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. There is not much more to know about it. You just need to be careful about the fact that with the pure deposits you have 240 crude oil per minute, and that means you need to consider how you split it up. And don't shy away from creating these monstrosities. It really is not so much about cosmetics. I mean, making it all nice and tidy is a lot of work. That is really one thing that I want to stress out at this point. Choose wisely how much effort you want to put into this. I find that pipe works in this game really time intense. So what's left to say? You can also liquefy biofuel, but that is just a side thing where I feel like you don't need to do that at all. I don't know if there's any future recipe that I haven't unlocked yet that requires liquefied biofuel, but the point is, it is nothing you wouldn't know how to deal with at this point. The only difference is that you need to put a solid and a liquid in. But by now, I trust you, Pioneer, that you understood how this works as well. So, I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. Let me know if you have any further questions, if you want to know any other details or anything like that. I'm all ears. And leave a like, leave a subscribe. Check out the description box. Feel free to support my channel if you feel like my work is worth a dime to you. It would really mean a lot to me. Many thanks to all of you who do, and many thanks to you for watching this tutorial. See you all soon, I hope.